Hey guys, Ryan here. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about what I think is the new meta after the Season 3 Reloaded patch. If you are looking for attachments for any of the S tier guns I talk about, make sure you go down below in the description to grab them. I hope you guys enjoy this video and I want to say thank you for watching it, and we're just going to get right into it. So we're going to begin by talking about the S tier SMGs. At number 1, we're going to have the Type 100. At number 2, the Bullfrog. At number 3, we're going to have the Armaguerra. And at number 4, the CX-9. One of the first things you probably noticed is the lack of Owen gun on that list. The reason for this is because it was once again nerfed in the latest patch, but I'm not sure it's going to be enough to knock it from its meta spot. For now, I'm going to put it in the A tier, but I think we're going to have to see where it's at in a week or two. I think the Type 100 and the Bullfrog are going to be the two standout SMGs. I think the average and most common casual and average player is going to enjoy something like the Bullfrog a little more than the Type 100, but I do think that people who are a little quote-unquote higher skilled or have an ability to control recoil are going to enjoy the Type 100 more. When you look at the raw time to kill, the Type 100 is now the fastest killing SMG pretty much in the entire game, and it's really going to stand out in that aspect. However, I do think guns like the Armaguerra and the CX-9 are going to stand out for their unique strengths. Now, I know it's not actually pronounced the Armaguerra, that's just what I like to call it, but the gun is just an overall really balanced gun, and the couple changes they did today aren't going to really move its position in the meta. I think the overall mobility, the damage, the easy to use recoil is just going to make it an extremely solid choice, and a similar thing is going to apply to the CX-9. What makes the CX-9 so special is that it has amazing hip fire, and I just feel that the overall damage, the damage range, the recoil, everything about it is just being really slept on, and if you're a fan of Modern Warfare guns, that's something I would really try. I'm going to now quickly touch on the A tier SMGs, and at number 1 we're going to have the Owen gun, at number 2 the MP40, at number 3 is going to be the Cold War and Modern Warfare MP5, and at number 4 we're going to have the Sten. Any gun in that A tier category is going to be more than good enough to use right now, and that's something to also consider. The Owen gun and MP40 might actually be S tier. We're just going to need a week or two to actually see how good they really are at the end of the day, but overall you can't go wrong with using any of those A tier SMGs, and if you're playing solos, really do consider giving the Sten a try. So moving on from there, we're going to get into the long range AR and LMGs, and at number 1 we're going to have the STG, at number 2 the Cooper and Automaton, at number 3 the PKM and Bruin, and last but not least the Vargo 52. Similar to the last patch, the STG is going to remain the number 1 option, and for good reason. It has super good damage, it has super low recoil, and it's just really easy to use, and that's what makes it number 1. However, this same thing is going to apply to the Cooper Carbine and the Automaton, and that's something to really consider. If you enjoyed the Cooper Carbine last patch, I would just really recommend using it because it even got a little buff, and that's insane to me. Now, moving beyond the Cooper and Automaton, I would heavily also recommend using the Vargo 52. The Vargo 52 is going to kind of replace the XM4 and the Cold War AK in the meta right now, and that's because it caught a little buff and the XM4 and Cold War AK got nerfed. Now, I'm not going to talk too much about the PKM and Bruin because I talked about them extensively in my PKM video I did about 2 or 3 weeks ago, but I have to heavily recommend them. If you were to look at their stats in terms of damage, bullet velocity, pretty much everything aside from mobility, they are clearly some of the best guns in the entire game when you're talking about long range ARs. Now, it's gonna obviously not be the best pick for everyone because the whole mobility, reload time, whatever, but I really think most people are sleeping on these guns just because they're LMGs, and I would heavily recommend giving them a try. I'm now going to begin talking about the A tier ARs and LMGs, and first up we're going to have the QBZ, at number 2 we're going to have the BAR, at number 3 the AS44, and at number 4 the KG40. Now the thing is about all of these ARs in the A tier is that they could actually all be S tier. The reason for this is because they ended up buffing guns like the BAR and the AS44, yet I'm not exactly sure how meta they really are. While they do feel great in the little bit of testing I did after this patch went live and before I made this video, I'm not confident enough to just say they're meta. I'm not going to put them in the S tier yet, but do keep your eyes out on these guns because they really could sneak up in the meta ranking, and that's something to heavily consider. There are a lot of guns that got buffed in this latest patch, and it's just going to take time to really see how they all shake out. For example, when you're talking about the AS44 and the BAR, they clearly both have strengths that might make them clear meta contenders, but they also have clear weaknesses that might hold them back. The bar might just have too slow of a rate of fire to really ever be truly meta, and the AS44 might still have too much recoil. I think though for some people, both of those guns are going to be amazing, and that's why I want to put them in the A tier, and they might just creep up into the S tier by next week or something. So we're going to move on from talking about ARs, and now we're going to talk about snipers, because there actually was a little shakeup in the sniper meta in this last patch. So at number 1, we're going to have the 3-line rifle. At number 2, the HDR and ZRG. At number 3, the AX50. And at number 4, the Grashenko anti-tank rifle. In the last patch, they ended up nerfing the HDR and the ZRG by a little bit, really not that much of a nerf at all. And they also ended up buffing the 3-line rifle. One of the main things they finally fixed with the 3-line rifle was having the scope not be centered. This sounds absolutely crazy, but the scope was a little off on the 3-line rifle, and this made it so if you were aiming directly at someone, you could still sometimes miss your shot, and that was just super annoying. But now, after all of the recent changes, I do think it's actually insanely good, and I'd really recommend for people to use it. The same thing is actually going to go for the Grashenko tank rifle. The vast majority of people have never tried it, they've never even really heard of this gun, and I think that's one of the big things holding it back, is just that people don't have it leveled up, they've never really seen anyone using it, and so they don't know how good it is. It has extremely good damage, it has really good rate of fire, so you can hit follow-up shots insanely easy, and it's just kind of a weird sniper overall. I don't think it's meant for every person. I don't think a lot of people are going to enjoy it, but I do know there's going to be a certain group of people who are going to absolutely love this thing, and when you look at the stats and the feel, it definitely is S tier in my mind. Now, I'm not going to necessarily talk about A tier snipers because that's for another video, and because almost all of my A tier snipers would essentially just include snipers meant for Rebirth. I think there's a clear defined difference in snipers you want to use on Rebirth versus Caldera, and I'm going to stick mainly talking about Caldera. In this last section, I want to cover how shotguns were nerfed and kind of taken out of the meta, but I also want to talk about the health changes they added to Rebirth. Prior to this patch, the health on Caldera and Rebirth was different, and this actually had a massive impact on gameplay. On Caldera, you had 300 health, and on Rebirth, you had 250 health. Now, you have 300 health on both Rebirth and Caldera, and this is going to change guns. If you have something with a low rate of fire, that time to kill is going to be way more affected by this extra 50 health than something that has a fast rate of fire. I think this is going to end up having a kind of minor impact on the meta, but it's going to really add up. That's why I was really hesitant to put the bar in S tier despite the buffs, because that low rate of fire with the health change could really spell disaster, and it's something to really be cautious of. Now, also talking about changes, they nerfed a ton of shotguns. Guns like the Jak-12 before were so meta and were so good it was hard to describe. Like, I am not kidding, guys. The Jak-12 prior to this patch was easily one of the best close range guns in the entire game, and particularly on Rebirth, they are especially dominant. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope that it actually helps you understand the meta a little better after the recent patch, because there is a lot of buffs and nerfs, and I think it's important for people to understand what they should be using. I plan on beginning streaming on this channel a good bit, so do keep your eyes out on that, and I have a lot of videos planned for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you have a good day. It's been Ryan. Peace.